Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to CBASI webinars. We are going to have a series of webinars concerning Power BI. And on today's session, we have our speaker, Maureen Wachira, who is a data analyst expert, and she'll be taking you guys through Power BI. So just some housekeeping rules. If you have any question or you'd like if you have any question you'd like to get in touch, kindly use the Q&A session or the chat area. And also we have a technical team on standby, so if you have any question, feel free to ask and we'll answer. Then at the end of the session, you have a Q&A, so you can sit back, relax, and enjoy the session. I'll introduce Maureen and then she can take over.
Okay, thank you very much, Rini, for that introduction. As Rini said, my name is Maureen Wachira. I'm a data analyst at CBASI. And CBASI is a tech company that deals with development, deployment, and technology consulting of various tools. And this is including Power BI, which I deal with. At CBASI, I've worked with Power BI in quite a number of projects, and it's very exciting to talk about it. So, welcome again. Okay, let me just get my slides together. Sorry for that. Okay, so for this session is part one of a subsequent number of sessions. And as we go into the next sessions, we are going to be talking about more advanced concepts. This one is only about the basics. So this session is best suited for beginners in Power BI and as a refresher for those people who are familiar with Power BI. Okay, for this session, one of the prerequisites is that you have installed Power BI Desktop. And if you have not, please just search how to download Power BI and you can do that. Really can put a link there that you can use to assist you in downloading Power BI and installing it. So at the end of this session, we are hoping that by the end of this session, you will be able to import data into Power BI, have an overview of Power BI modeling, create a report using Power BI Desktop, and understand Power BI Service and Power BI Mobile. Okay, so this session is in two parts. The first one is a recap on Power BI basics. The next one is on Power BI Service. And we'll also touch on Power BI Mobile in that order. So after the first session, we'll have a break for 10 minutes, and then we'll head into the next session. After the 10-minute break, we will answer all the questions that you're going to have submitted in your Q&A. So if you have any questions as we go along, just submit them in the Q&A. And before we start the next session on Power BI Service, we'll address those questions. So let's begin with the recap on Power BI basics. So the agenda for this part is we'll cover a short introduction on why Power BI is important. So confirm that you guys have set up Power BI. And then we'll get started with Power BI Desktop and Power BI Service. Okay, so overall, this session, you should be able to set up Power BI, as I said before. You should be able to understand Power BI Desktop, Power BI Service, and Power BI Mobile. You should also have an understanding of navigating these interfaces. You should also understand common data sources, how to use Power Query Editor, visualizing data using Power BI Desktop, publishing Power BI Desktop, publishing a Power BI report to Power BI Service, sharing your report and refreshing your data. Okay, so we'll jump right into the introduction of why Power BI, and then we'll introduce the three main tools, which are Power BI Desktop, Service, and Mobile. So before we can understand why Power BI is important, we have to understand what problem it is solving. So today, many organizations are collecting a lot of data in their daily operations, and organizations are really working towards being data-driven businesses. What does this mean? This means they want to leverage on the data that they are collecting in order to make decisions and data-driven strategies. So how are organizations doing this? So they are really looking into analytics, data analytics, visualizing their data, creating reports, creating the dashboards, and then using those insights for decision making. And the solution really lies with using the right tools. And this is where Power BI is very well placed. So why Power BI among many other BI tools that you may know of? So Power BI is very good because it connects to very many data sources, which we'll look into. It is very secure, and there's a whole white paper documentation on the Power BI security, which you can look into. And there's also a big Power BI team that is really working towards improving Power BI every day. So every month they have releases on what is new in Power BI. So it is well maintained by Microsoft. There's a big team behind Power BI. So those are just justifications on how you should use Power BI. And Power BI is very user friendly for beginners, and it also adapts well to people who want to use it for big data. Okay. So what is the common workflow in Power BI? So as I said before, Power BI has three main classes, if you could say that. So we have Power BI Desktop, Power BI Service, and Power BI Mobile. So in Power BI Desktop, this is where we create our reports. This is where we create our visualizations. And then we publish these reports into Power BI Service, where we can share to different users, to different stakeholders, where we can collaborate with our colleagues, and then we consume it through Power BI Mobile or even in our web browser. So we know very well right now, the best everyone is stuck on their phones. So Power BI Mobile is a very integral part in how users consume the reports and the dashboards. So you essentially begin in Power BI Desktop and go to Service, Power BI Service, and then you can now decide how your end users will consume your reports, hopefully with mobile or even with web. So we'll look into this more practically as we go along. So this is just a reminder that if you want to follow along practically, you can just set up Power BI. You can install and set up Power BI right now. So we'll look at our slides, and then we'll have short demos in between. So yeah, let's start with getting started with Power BI Desktop. So one of the objectives of this session is we are going to be navigating Power BI Desktop, connecting to data using Power Query Editor, understanding data types. We'll also touch a little bit on data modeling and visualizing your data using common visuals. And here you have created hopefully a good report that you can then publish to Power BI Service. So as soon as you open Power BI Desktop, this is a splash page or the landing page you get. And once you get here, you can click the Get Data. Power BI is very reliant on data. So once you click the Get Data, this is the default view that you will get. So let us see let us see how Power BI desktop looks like, so that when you're there, you'll know where what this is, once we get to the demos, the practicals. So at the top, you'll see this is our ribbon. Here you'll get different tools. You'll also be able to get data. This is also where you'll get the button to publish your report. Yeah. And this view, this is the default view. This is called a report view. This is where, in number 2, this is where your visualizations will live. This is the canvas. So this is our report view. We have different views. We have data view and model view, which we shall look into. Okay, here at number 3, at the bottom, you'll see page 1. And this is where you have your pages tabs. So if you want to have a report that has multiple pages, you just click the plus sign and you add another page. So you'll have multiple pages in your report. Okay, here in number 4, this is a visualization page. This is where you will click on these icons and you'll get the visual on your canvas. So you can drag the visual here to the canvas and you get the visual that you want to select. In the fields pane, this is where your data will reside. This is where your data will reside and all the fields in your table. Yeah, so anytime we talk about fields pane, this is what we are talking about: visualization pane, the ribbon, canvas, the pages tab. This is essentially the default view which you get, the report view. Okay, so let us look into connecting to data in Power BI desktop. So in your ribbon, you see a button that says Get Data, and you click it, and then you can click more. At default, you get common data sources, which are Excel, Power BI data sets. We shall discuss this later. So these are those which are common, but once you click more, you'll see the huge selection of data sources that you can have in Power BI. Power BI caters for most of the data sources. If you have it, it's most likely you're most likely going to be able to connect to it in Power BI, which is one of the advantages and why people love it. Okay, so we'll go into a short demo where we'll connect to Excel data, and we'll do this practically in Power BI desktop. Okay. Okay, sorry, let me just. Okay, so as we talked about, this is the splash screen that you're going to get. Then you can just say get data. And by default, you're going to get this dialog. Okay, so as you can see, Power BI does a good job in classifying the type of data source that you want. If you want a file, it will kind of categorize them for you. So we have Excel workbooks, PDF, XML, databases, they are all here, from Power Platform, Azure, and so forth. But if you want to really, that is one way you can get data, or you can just get data from here and then you can see more. Okay, let's take time, and you still get open the same. So you can see there's a lot. If you want to connect to MariaDB, the server, everything you want is there. Okay. So for our case, we are going to be connecting to an Excel file. So immediately, there are 2 ways you can do this. By default, you can see in the ribbon you have here the Excel workbook. You can use that, or you can just do get data Excel workbook. And for me, this is the data. You see, it will let you navigate to the data that you want, the Excel data, and then you can open. So once you open, you'll see I have 3 sheets in my data, and I can click on them. Once you click, you'll get a preview of the data. You can click on, since I want to get all this into Power BI, and just click all three, and then you can click load. Once you load, let's give it time to load. You get your data in the field screen. Here you can see our data has successfully been imported. We'll go back to our slides so that is how you import data into Power BI, especially now that we are dealing with Excel data. That is how you do it. Okay, let's go back to our now. So here we are going to talk about Power Query. So the simple data importation that we have done, the engine behind it is Power Query, and Power Query also allows you to transform the data into the format or the shape that you want for visualization. So I'm sure if you worked with data before, you know it doesn't come clean and tidy the way you want it to. Sometimes it will come with some of a bit dirty, or so to speak. And so Power Query is a tool that we use to transform our data into clean data. So some of the common things, transformations that you do with Power Query, maybe you remove columns you don't want. You can rename a column. You can change the data type into a correct data type. By data type, I mean the default way the information comes in. So if I have 1, 2, 3, that should possibly be a whole number. If I have text, maybe like names like John, Jane, that should be text. Depending on how you want, maybe I've imported 1, 2, 3, and it has come in numeric, but the way I mean it is not that way. Maybe I have product ID 1, 2, 3, 4. So as you can see, Power BI will kind of try and think that since these are numerals, I want my data to be a whole number, and maybe I want it to be a category, so that way I need it to be a text. So what Power Query is, what is the engine behind common data transforming. So you will spend a lot of time here in cleaning your data, just really massaging your data to be in the format that you want it to be, which is very useful because once you are through it here, we'll get into data modeling, and then you can create really accurate visuals. Okay, so you remember once we imported our data, once we reached, we saw a screen like this, and we clicked load. So instead of clicking load, if you want to open the Power Query editor, you click the transform data button. That is one way. Instead of loading the data first, you can then go to Power Query, then you can transform, and then you can then load it then. Sorry, and then you can load it. Okay, so since we have already loaded our data, how can we get to Power Query since you can't really go back and delete and then? So how we can access Power Query editor is that in the ribbon, you click transform data, then you can click this transform data button, and it will take you into the Power Query editor. Okay, so the Power Query, let us look at our Power Query editor. This is the kind of screen you're going to get once you open the Power Query editor. You also have a ribbon at the top, which has 4 tabs. You can see there is home, transform, add column, view, and you have help. So this ribbon will help you, has different buttons that will help you in your transformation. So we can see here, like this one says data type. If you need to change a data type, you can use this. If you want to replace values, you can do that. Okay. Here in number 2, we have the query pane. Here is where you view all the available queries. By queries, we mean that once you can think of a query like a table. Each table that we loaded in was a query. So, okay. Number 3, this is the current view. Once you click a query or any table, it will be, you'll be able to have a preview of it in the current view. And here, number 4, this is the most important part of the Power Query editor. This is, you'll see any transformation that you perform on your table will be listed here in the applied steps. Let's say we change this name from cities. We'll have another step listed here, and the best part is that you can undo a step, it also helps you in documenting your steps. So if I send somebody this file, they can see the steps I took in cleaning my data. So it's one of the very nifty things about Power BI. You won't be really lost. You see all the steps somebody did to their data to get it to where it is right now. Okay. So we'll do a demo in data transformation, and we'll also visualize our data during this demo. Okay. So we are going to move directly to Power BI desktop. Okay. So as we said before, we loaded our data, but now we want to go to Power Query editor. So you can click the transform data button, click transform data, and then you'll get into your Power Query editor. Okay. So first thing you can see with this query, we have employee data. You can see the applied steps. So for best practice, maybe we can change the name instead of emp ID, maybe you can call it employee ID. So in order to rename the column name, it's as easy as just double clicking on the column name and then just changing to employee ID. Once you do that, please look at the applied steps. Once I click enter, it's going to add the step there. So you can see we have a new step that has renamed column. And you can do the same here. Instead of emp, you can say employee ID, employee name. And see my steps are being recorded. Okay, so that is how you can rename your column name. Luckily for me, there's nothing else I would really like to change. Okay, but let us check what the data type, the default data type that has come with my data. Okay, so let's see the different types of data types. You see that we have decimal, it's decimal, whole number, percentage, date type, date. So there are quite a few here. So you can change your column into the data type that best suits your data. So for me, employee ID, right now it's considering it as a whole number. But I really don't need for this to be an aggregated column. I don't need to have like sum of employee ID. In fact, I wanted to show that this is a category. So I'll change this into a test data type. So immediately you can see this one has changed. The step has been recorded. And if I want to go back and view my data before I performed that step, you just click on a step. You can also rename any step if you choose to, and you can also delete a step. But be warned that sometimes when you delete a step and there are some steps behind it, you can cause the query to break. So I think this is one of the coolest things about Power BI. Okay, let's go to the sales data. Let's view this data from the perspective of in Excel, and let's look at what this data is about. Okay. Okay, sorry about this. Sorry. Okay, let us look at this Excel data. Let us see what this data is about and how it looks like. So you can see in my workbook, in my sheet, it looks very nice. It's designed to be easily consumed by all my users. I have a nice heading for them. I have even different colors. Yeah, so that is how it looks like. So my data is sales data over time. So I have a date column here, and I have the employee ID, the product ID, the number of units sold, the price per unit, and the sales revenue, and which country this sale transaction was occurred. So I have another table here, which is about my product. This is information about my product. You can see I have product ID 1, which is a Black Forest. It's a cake, and price per unit is 60. So let's assume maybe 60 shillings. So you can see I have more information about my product, which I don't have in this sales data. From here, I have my employee information. I have my employee ID, the name. This is John. The supervisor he is under, which is supervisor 1. John's age and the gender. So we have a lot of information about the employee, more information about the product, and some sales data. So with this information, this is the data that we have loaded into Power BI Desktop. Okay, let's go back to Power BI Desktop, to the Power Page Editor. So this is how it looks like once we have loaded. You can see the Excel sheet was designed for easily consumption for humans, for my users. It looks very nice, but it doesn't translate well into Power BI. So I need to clean this up. You can see the column names. These are not my column names. These are the ones that I want to be my column names. Date, MPID, product ID, unit sold. That's what I want to be my column name. So the best part is that in Power Query now, let's do some transformations. We can delete some of these columns. So let's remove this row. So to remove rows, you can remove top row. Let's remove one row. Okay, so you can see a bit of an error here. Let's see why the error. Let's see, remove rows, remove top rows, remove rows 1. Oh, sorry, it's because we have our Excel file open. Let's close it. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's do that again. Hopefully now it will work. Remove row, remove the top row 1, then okay. Okay, so now we've removed that row, but I want this to be my header column. So we have a nifty button here which you can use to set this to use this as my header. So I can use first row as header. So now you can see my header, my column names are now what they are supposed to be. But we can now rename our columns to this one to be employee ID, product ID. I'm happy with how the names are named. Okay, now let us look at the data types. So you can see this one. So a date time data type. I really don't want it to have this time aspect. So because as you can see, I didn't record the data with a time aspect. So by default it has taken a date time. So you need to really come to Power Query and confirm that the data types are what you want them to be. So let's change this to date. So employee ID, this is a category, not a whole number. So we'll change this to text. Okay, and also for units sold, let's say I'm not really able, for my units, I'm not able to sell a fraction of something like 0.5 or something. I can only sell one cake, one pie. So this one can stay as a whole number, but price per unit, what if I change my price to something like 4.99? So we can change this to decimal and the sales revenue to decimal. The rest I am happy with. Okay, once you've finished doing your transformation, you can see they're listed here, and I'm happy with everything, how it looks like. Let's look at this one. Okay, this one has some columns that I really don't, that are just blank columns that I really don't want. So you can highlight this, and then you can right click and remove these columns. You have the option of just remove the columns. That is how you remove columns you don't need. You can remove the columns you don't need and the rows you don't need. Okay, once you're happy with the queries the way they are, you just close and apply. Once you close and apply, all the transformations you have done is now loaded into your. Okay, so this one is what we were calling the data view. Once you're here in the data view, let us look at our tables now. You can see all the transformations we did. We changed this from emp ID to employee ID. Product data. We removed columns. Now we're happy with how it looks like. The sales data, we're happy with the column names. Yeah. Okay. So very happy with how it's looking right now. So I had initially created a report using this data, and I'm going to open it right now so that we can view it. And then we can try and recreate the report as we explore the visuals in Power BI. So just give me, I think I actually have it open. So here it is. So this is my sales report, and I have 2 pages in my report, the sales report and the employee report. Let's look at the sales report first. Okay, so you can see we have total revenue, total units sold, and we have a filter here on a slicer here, sorry. Okay. This one is not really seeing the truth. So anyway, we have this one, we have a donut chart here that is showing the sales revenue per supervisor, the sales revenue by product type, and we can see the highest, the product that has brought in the highest revenue is the mug, and we can even slice and see what about in January. Still mug was the highest, and so this is the power of Power BI. You can be able to slice and create an interactive experience with your data as you exploit. So if you want to see in Djibouti, you can see that is where we had the highest sales of our products. We have a nice nifty map here. We have sales revenue by year and month. And here we have a nice matrix visual that is telling us by product type, the sales revenue and units sold. Okay, we can go back to our. Here we have an employee report and see the total number of employees, the average age of employees. We have a slicer over here for year and month. And we'll see how we can recreate something like this, or at least feel comfortable creating a report like this. So we have the total number of employees by gender. You can see here we have a pie chart that is showing we have 7 male, we have 13 female, and the males are 33.5%. We have the units sold by employee. You can see Josephine sold the most amount of units and brought in the most amount of revenue, followed by James. But interestingly, Jackie sold more units than James, but still James got more revenue. So maybe James was selling a more expensive item and sold more of an expensive item. See, these are some of the insights you wouldn't really see with your eyes that the visuals kind of help you to see. You can see the number of which employees and which supervisor. You can see supervisor 1, Amy, Grace, James, John, Josephine, and their female and their ages. Yeah, just something simple like this. So let's get right to it. And now let us look at the visualization pane. You see all the available visuals that you have in Power BI. So you can see we have pie charts. Pie charts are really good for showing proportion. We have a line chart. These ones are very good for showing an aggregate or something over time. And area chart is just like a line chart. The only difference is that it's shaded at the bottom. We have a card visual. This is what we saw here. Let me just go back to our report. This is our card visual over here. This one is a card. Very good visual if you want to kind of highlight your KPIs. Although we have other KPI visual like this one, if you have a goal that you're getting to, then you can be able to visualize how far you are into reaching your goal, or if you have exceeded your goal. Yeah, so very nice visuals. You have your map. There are 4 types of maps. You have the basic map, the field map, the shift map, Azure maps. We have these bar charts. I'm sure you're familiar with them. So the possibilities are endless. Okay, not endless, but there mean. But if you feel like there are some things here that you need more visuals, you can get custom visuals. So how do you get a custom visual? You see these 3 dots. You just click on this and you can get more visuals. Like for our case in this report, I'll just jump back to this report. This one is a custom visual. It's called the chiclet slicer. So let's see how you can import a custom visual into Power BI. Okay, now let's go back. Could you click the 3 dots? You can see get more visuals. And then let's go and get our chiclet slicer. You can use the search button here, but I can already see it here. So there are so many custom visuals which you can explore. Very many that you can look into. Yeah, so let's get our chiclet slicer. This is how you get a custom visual. So once you click it, and then you can add it. Okay, and it will be added to your report. So you see, now we have an icon that will be for our chiclet slicer. Okay, so let's create our first video. Let's start with a pie chart. Once you click the icon, you get your visual into the canvas. Okay. Now you need to give data to your visual. So let's say in my case, okay, before we start creating the visuals, we'll talk about the data model. Okay, So as I say, this is the model view. Okay. In a real life situation, you can see some lines over here. These are called relationships. So that you can understand this very well. Let's get our look at tables at the top. Let me just arrange this and you'll see why I'm arranging them a bit later. Okay, so think of it this way. Let's go back to our data. You can see we have a sales data table. This one is recording our transactions. You see, we have a sale that was done on this date. It was probably handled by employee IDVs, and they bought this product, the number of units sold, this and this and this. Ideally, think of it if you were in this company. We have a HR department that is holding all the information about the employee data. In our sales, in this transaction, you can have the option, if, let's say I want to see all the sales that employee D1 handled. You have the option of having one big inflated table that will say, on this date, employee ID1, name John, bought product ID1, ID08, which is a cake of type this, and employee John is 58 years, and you see what you have. We'll have a very big table that really we don't need this information to be in one table. So what happens is that you usually have a schema. You create a table, a packed table. This one will usually have information about the business transaction. So if your business is selling cakes like this, it will hold information such as this. And then we'll have another table that will have information about who, what, where, like this one. So this one is containing information about employee data. So this will be our lookup table. So if I want to have information about my employee, I can just connect this, and then I can be able to use all these tables as one. Instead of having one inflated, one bloated table, I can have some lookup tables which are connected with the primary and foreign key, and then you can use all these tables as one. So that is the concept of data modeling, not to preempt other sessions. I know we have a session on advanced data modeling, but I hope it's making sense. So let's look at what I mean by a primary key. In your lookup table, you'll have a unique instance of your primary key. So this one will be like employee ID is unique. Everything is unique here. And how do I connect this to my sales data table? I connect it with this key, with this column, which will be my foreign key. So this way, I'll have a relationship, and I'll be able to use these tables as one. The same way, you can have product ID, which will be our lookup table, and then you can connect it to the sales data table. So in the end, you are able to have a very nice relationship over here. And if you want to, right now, I'm sure, let's inspect our relationships to make sure that they are indeed what I want them to be. So you can see they are really connected on the employee ID, which is what I want. The sales data will have many instances of the employee ID. The employee data will only have one instance. So our cardinality of our relationship will be many to one. So let's look at the other one. on this other one, similarly, you have your sales data will have many instances of your product ID, and your product data lookup table will only have one instance. So I hope it's making a bit sense. And these dimension tables, we'll use them to slice and dice and get more information. Anyway, so I'm sure in our next session, we'll have a very detailed and very comprehensive session on data modeling, which will be handled by another colleague. So look forward to that. Okay, now let's start on our visuals. Let's create our visuals. Oh goodness. Okay, so we'll just create a few visuals. So let's say we want to visualize, and you can see already, since our column is the numeric value, Power BI will try to aggregate this for you, and typically it will try to sum this for you. So you can use this one as your value, and then your legend is like, what category do you want them to be by? Maybe you want to by gender. See, the females are the ones who are bringing in more revenue than the males. Things like that. If you want, maybe let's create a bar chart. Okay, and this one, let's say we want to see which employee is bringing in most of the revenue. So you can see in our y-axis. Okay, so if you want to populate the information in your visual, you can check the box, or you can just drag it to your visual, or you can drag it here. So this one we have our employee name to be our y-axis, and the x-axis I want it to be the revenue. Okay, so you can see already Josephine is the employee that is bringing in the highest revenue. So, and you can filter through. This is one of the best things about Power BI. You can filter through, and if you don't want it, you can see it is highlighting. If you don't want it to highlight, you just right click. You can click on the visual format, edit interaction, and then you'll see two buttons here. Sorry, this one will filter. So if I click here, it will kind of just give me the exact value that show me that Josephine surprisingly male. So it's male, and his revenue is 5.48. And if I want to highlight, so you can see it will just block out. The color will pop out for Josephine, and then the other one will be muted. But the other one, once you filter, you'll just see only what Josephine, what the revenue by Josephine. Yeah, I hope I explained that well, but I think we'll see other cases. Okay, so another thing you can see with the visual, if you want to focus on this visual, you can click on this. So you can just have a very undistracted view of your visual, and then you can click on back to report. Okay, so another thing you can see, this is not usually best practice, even though it is working, it's not wrong, but sometimes you may want to reuse your or have it's best to create a calculation on the sum instead of using this. There's nothing wrong with using this, but best practice is you create a calculation which we call a measure. And in Power BI, we use a language called DAX. So you can create a measure here. It will go to this table. However, best practice is you create a new table that will only contain your calculation of your measures. So I'll show you how to do that. You can create your table. You can just click enter data. So, then you can call it measure table. You can click load. Okay, in our measure table, it will come with one column. Then let's create a measure. Let's call it total sales revenue. And we want to sum in our sales data the column on sales revenue. Okay, so once you finish, you click this one. Then you can delete this column. That's how you delete a column in a table, and you can delete. Your measure table will automatically go to the top of the fields pane. So that's one of the best things. So now you can replace, instead of using this, you can use your nice measure. And this one, you can reuse it, and you can have other measures that are nested with this measure. That's, and I'm sure in the session 2, we're also going to look into advanced DAX visuals, DAX calculations, sorry. And that will also be handled by another colleague. And so the next session will be for, if you want to really get into Power BI advanced, so please look out for that. Okay, so due to time constraints, I can see that we are not really being able to replicate our dashboard, but I'd urge you to please, I think I'll provide this data set, and then we can still go and see what other visuals you can create. You can put in your card visual, and then you can put in your measure. You see things like that. Just really play around and see what visuals can you really make with it. What information do you want to convey, and how can you convey it? So that's so if you have any questions, you can put them in the Q&A. This was going to be end of part 1. We'll take a 10-minute break, and then after the 10-minute break, we'll answer all the questions that you have before we go into the next session, that is BI service. Okay, so thank you guys. Okay, welcome back, guys. Welcome back. Hope you're back. I hope the break was had a good break. So we are going to get right into the next session, which is Power BI service, and we will also touch on Power BI mobile. So in this, we are going to okay. So we are going to enter into our next part, which is Power BI service. We are also going to touch on Power BI mobile. So for this part, we are going to, our agenda will be getting started with Power BI service. We'll have a brief overview about the interface, how it looks like, what to expect, what are the keywords. We're going to also publish our report to Power BI service. We're going to learn how to refresh our data. We're going to create some dashboards. And we're also going to learn how to share our reports and our dashboards with our users, and also how you would collaborate with a colleague. Okay. So by the end of this session, you should be able to log into Power BI service. You'll understand what are workspaces, data sets, reports, and dashboards. You should be able to publish a report, create a dashboard, share your reports and dashboards, and also to refresh your data. Okay, so it seems like okay, so one of the key things about Power BI service, this is where we publish our reports. Once you're done with creating your report in Power BI service, in Power BI desktop, you want to share it with your users, be it your end user, which will probably be management, or if you want to share with your colleague you're working with, in collaboration with, you want to share it with you want to essentially share your report, and you don't want to go. So if you're collaborating with a colleague, you don't want to be taking the PBIX file and sending it to them, and then them sending it back. That's not how you want to do it. And if you have a report, you don't want it to live in your desktop. You want to share it with your end user, with higher management, so that they can interact with it and get insight. So from the report that we made, we are going to start by publishing it to the Power BI service, and then we'll have an overview of about the Power BI service and what you expect to see in there, the capabilities of sharing. So you'll see how you can embed all those abilities. You'll see them in Power BI service. I think we'll start off by publishing the report that we have. We're not going to, since we really didn't look in depth into we are just going to take the one that I already made, and then we'll publish it. Then we can go into the service. So let's switch to the desktop. I'll close this part, then you can a new one. So give it time to open. This is the report I want to open. This is the one I had made for this. So the first thing you have to do in order to publish a report, you have to be signed in. So if you're not signed in to your Power BI desktop, just go here and that's it. And sign in. I'm already signed in this account. So with that, then you click in your ribbon, you will see the publish button. Just click the publish button and just keep note of this and see I have select a destination. I have my workspace, demo workspace, and real workspace. So let me publish to this. Let's here. I already have this report in my Power BI service. So if you already have the same report in Power BI service, it will ask you if you want to replace. And since I don't want to create a new one, I can just replace. This is my latest one. Okay, so you've seen something called a workspace. So a workspace, consider it as, think of it like a folder. So the way you have different folders for everything. Let's say you have a folder for movies, you have a folder for images, you have a folder for your file. That's a folder. You have a folder for that has many uses. So the same way you can create new workspaces where you can have different reports sitting in those workspaces. So if I want my reports on finance to be in one workspace, I can create a finance workspace. If I want a workspace just to be on, maybe I'm creating a human resource report, one with human resource or HR. You get the gist of it. You can create a workspaces in Power BI service, and we'll look at that later. Okay. So once you click there, you can go to, since I'm already signed into Power BI service, it will go directly here, but I'll show you how you can navigate to Power BI service. So you remember here, it told you can sign in to here. You'll see something called Power BI service. Already signed in, so it's taking me directly to Power BI service. But if you haven't signed in yet, it will prompt you to put in your email and your password, and then once you are there, you'll see something like this. So this is the Power BI service interface. So we have this ribbon here, we have canvas here. Yeah, so yeah, the first thing you'll see those workspaces that I was telling you about. We have our default workspace, which is my workspace. So my workspace will come by default, and then you can now create more workspaces. So in our case, maybe let me create a workspace, and I'll call this okay. Let me think of a name, maybe Martin workspace. So maybe I'll be using this workspace with Martin. So you can create this one and save. So now here is my workspace, and I'll call it Martin workspace. As I told you before, you can collaborate. You can give people. This is how you would ideally collaborate with somebody. So in this workspace, I can publish a report here, and then I want to give Martin access because I want to work together with Martin. So let's say we have his email, something like Martin. Okay, let's not share with Martin. Let's share with Winnie. Okay, so Winnie, and you have different levels to it. So as the expected admin will have all the rights. They can read, write on anything in your workspace. We have a contributor, a viewer. So a viewer will have less rights, of course, than maybe they can just view. So this is how you can create a workspace and then give somebody access to your workspace. Okay, so that's one thing. So if I go back to my report and I publish to Martin Workspace, you'll see the report here. But since we published our report to demo workspace. Let's see what you say that demo workspace. So this was our report. Okay. You have 3 tabs here. You have all, content, and data set workload. So what happens once you publish a report? Once you publish a report, the visual side of your report will be published. And another thing that will be published is your data. This is the data that we imported. The data set will consist of, you see those calculations which we did, the calculation which we did on sum of total sales, it's part of our data set. And also those 3 tables that we had, they are part of our data set. So all that is uploaded to this cloud-based service. So now, 2 things happen once you publish a report. You'll get this one, which is kind of the report view, and then you'll get this one, which is your data set. And then if you come here in content, you'll get the report, and I can see we'll talk about this one. This one is called a dashboard. We'll talk about it, and then the data sets you can see here, they are. Yeah. So those are the things that happen once you publish a report. Okay, now let's look at, let's navigate through this Power BI service. One of the key things about Power BI service, you can also upload your data directly to Power BI service. You can also create your reports directly in Power BI service. So if I want, I can just come here and get data. You see, you have the option of, let's get the data which I had. So I can get this from file, and see you have the option. I can get it from a local file and go back to where I had put in my, then just take in my data and open and import. Okay, so in Power BI service, you need to format your data. Remember our sheet was just a sheet, you need to format it as a table. So yeah, so I'm not going to upload that since we already have that data set here, even though it's named differently. So now another thing, that is how you can get data. You can get data from different places. You can get from database, files, and many other places. Okay, for the existing data sets that exist in your workspace, let's go to demo workspace. There are some things you can do. You can create a report with an existing data set. You can see here, looks similar to Power BI desktop. Already all my relationships, all my calculations, all my tables are here. So I can just build on that and create a new report from the data set that I had. Okay, so what if another handy thing that you can do from here is, actually we are creating from scratch, but you can, Power BI service is very handy that you can it can auto create a report for you. So you can click auto create with our Power BI dataset. And you remember when we clicked the common data sources, you saw Power BI datasets. These are the datasets they are talking about. So the datasets that are already in your Power BI service, you can reuse them again in your reports, either here in Power BI service or in Power BI desktop. So you can see Power BI service has also created a nice report for me, and I can still edit it now. Now you can edit it and maybe make it to look how you want it to. Yeah. So if you don't have time and you really need to quickly look at some insights, you can do this, auto create it, and yeah, you quickly get some quick summary of your data. So another thing that is very important in Power BI service is dashboards. Okay, so we talked about, let's not say that. Now content, we talked about this. Okay. So we had a report. Our report is very dynamic. You can filter, you can click a slicer and see how it is changing the visuals and all that. But what if you have a higher up or somebody who really doesn't have the time to learn how to navigate the report, but they want to see insights? Like let's say in this report of ours, so in this report of ours, they only want to see information in the month of January of 2019, and that's all they want to see. So, and they really don't have the time, of them never really navigated or interacted with this report, or even they find it hard, or maybe they don't want to see everything. They just want to see the sales revenue by product type and sales revenue by supervisor. They only want to see these two things, so they don't need to see this. Okay, so that's when you can create a dashboard. So a dashboard is created where you can pick and choose some specific visuals and create essentially a dashboard. So, and the best thing about dashboard is that it can keep the context. So you see our filter here is in January. Our dashboard will only show information in January. So let's create our first dashboard. How do you do this? You in our visual. So you can see already I had an existing dashboard called January sales dashboard. So let's maybe create a new one. Let's call it February. So let's pin. Sorry, you'll see once you hover over any visual, you'll see pin visual. So let's create a new dashboard and let's call it February dashboard. February sales dashboard. Then we pin our visual. Okay, let's also pin this one as well. An existing dashboard, and I want it to go here and here. Maybe I also want this one. Last one. We do this. We can pin this one. Pin. Okay, let's go to our dashboard. You can see you'll have all those three visuals here into your dashboard, and now you can adjust it so that it can look very nice, how you want it to look like. Okay. Okay. So this one is really stretch. Okay. Okay, it doesn't look very nice, but you get the gist of it. You can just adjust the look and feel of this dashboard, and then. So now we have our sales revenue for February. And this is what my boss wants to see. They don't want to see anything else. So now I can quickly, how do you share them with your boss or your stakeholder, whoever wants to do this? So you can just click share and then you put in the email. But you'll notice there are some levels to this, as in if you want somebody to be able to share this dashboard, you can click this one. So if I send this link to whoever I'm sending to, they can reshare it. You can click that. But what if I want to, and if I don't want them to share this, I can do that. And then I don't want to send maybe an email notification, they can send this to me. Sorry. To grant her access. Yeah. So Winnie should First thing that is very important if you're sharing a dashboard with someone is that they should have at least a Power BI program. They should be able to access this as well. So let's go into how do I share my report. So let's go to this report of ours, then next report. Then I want to share this report with you. And now there are two ways you can share reports. Okay, I can share with them with Winnie just the same way we had done. I can give her email, and she'll be able to see this. Okay. What if Winnie doesn't even have a Power BI license or anything? And or if I want to share with, let's say, anyone in the world, just the public. So the first thing you can do is publish to the web. Anyone with this, it will generate an embed code here. It will generate a link here that you can copy and paste. And anyone with access to this link will be able to view your report. So this one is not really well recommended if your data is very private. So only use this if you are comfortable with anyone viewing this report, as long as they have the link. So that is one way. So, and you can only publish to the web if you have a pro license. So as a developer, maybe you want to embed this report into a website or a web app or anything. So how do you do that? You see this one, you can click that, and then you can now use this link to embed in your web app or website. Okay, so what if you want to, those are ways you can embed your report. What if you want to put instances of this report? Maybe I want this report to be in my annual report, in which I handle in every quarter. So maybe I want it to be like an image. I want images of this report. So you can embed an image using this. You can do that, and we'll see what it will do that. What if I want to make a presentation in PowerPoint and I don't want to go to this to create a public link or come to Power BI service to show my audience all my things? So there is a way you can embed the live report into PowerPoint. So you can see the second one. The second one is embed live data. You can click that. Open in PowerPoint, and then you can open. Yes, so we are back to my slides. Okay, so this is the first one. Okay, let's see. So once you want to embed this report into your PowerPoint, you have to, it will urge you to sign in as well. So this is one of the best things about Power BI, very secure. So not everyone has access to your name. So you see, now instead of having to go to Power BI service or create a link, you can just embed it into your presentation, and then you can now engage your users this way. So, yeah, one of the, this is how you can really share your report. I hope we bring some ideas on how you will be sharing your reports. Okay, so there was the first one which we've done. Let's see if you can see it in the downloads. I'll show you this one. Let's see. This one should come up as an image. So you remember it will take the image of that page, since we only wanted to show only this page. And here you can take like a screenshot, and then you can put it in your reports. Okay, so these are some of the ways you can. What if you want to generate a PDF of the whole report? So this is how you do it. Click here. I only want to export the current page. What if I want to export everything? Click that. And then that will take some time. Yeah. So that is how you can really share your report, whether be it in PowerPoint, whether you want to embed it in a web app or a website, yeah, or if you want to take some screenshots, yeah. So this is how you do this. There's another session that will be on securities. Maybe you don't want everyone to view all the visuals. You want to have some people not being able to view some of the things in your report. So that one will be covered by my colleague in a subsequent session. So look forward to that. Okay. So now let's go back to our slides where we'll talk about refreshing your data. Okay. So as we have seen, our data source was Excel. Now, once you create your reports, you probably want to add more data to it, and you want your report to have the most up-to-date information. So since our data source was Excel file, which was in our local computer, how will we, and you can see Power BI service. Let's say we are sharing it, or we are sharing it as a Power BI link. I want people to really get the most information, the most up-to-date information, and I'm updating an Excel file in my local computer. So how will that really translate? You can see your local computer or your is on premise. It's not connected to the cloud, while Power BI service is in the cloud. So how does that work? What happens here is that you need a Power BI gateway. So a gateway is you need a gateway that will act as a bridge that provide a quick and secure data transfer between your on-premises data that is on your computer, or even on a secure server, but that is not on the cloud, that is on premise, with your information that is with the cloud, Microsoft Cloud Service. So we have two types of gateways which we'll look into. So, but what if your information is really not on premise, and maybe it's on a SharePoint list which is in the cloud? We'll talk about how you can refresh your data as well when your information is not like local or something like that. So if you have a Power BI Pro license, you'll get automatic data refreshes, and we'll look into this practically. You'll get 8, so you can set up times, a time where your data will be refreshing. You get 8 refreshes every day. If you have the premium license, you get 48 refreshes, which is really nice. Yeah. So, but you can also refresh your data locally. So for me, I'll show you how we do this. You can just refresh your data. If your data is not going to be really be updated as frequently, maybe I want to update my data once every 3 months. Once I'm doing my quarterly report, so I don't need to really have an automatic refresh that will be automatically refreshing without me putting so much effort into it. Although that would be nice, but is it really necessary? Not really. Maybe you could just do that when you're working on it. Yeah, so we were talking about our Power BI gateway, which is a bridge between that will help you to really refresh data that is on premise and the report which is in the cloud. So there are two types of gateways. The first one is personal mode, and the other one is standard mode. I think it used to be called on-premise mode, now it's called standard mode. So the difference between the two is here, the personal mode is for somebody who wants to use you want to set up the gateway just for you alone. It's not really that you want to share your data with other people, but if you are collaborating and you want to really share your data, then you are better suited using the standard mode. You can see, if you, for those people who have, if you're not only using import mode in importing your data, but you also have like connection and direct query, you cannot use the personal mode. You have to use the standard mode. The personal Power BI gateway will only work on Power BI, but the other one, the standard one, it will also help in it. You can use it with Power Apps, and Power Automate, all those flow, all that. So now we'll look at how to set up a Power BI gateway. Like for our case, our data source is in my folder in my computer. So how will I be able to refresh my information? Let's say I want to refresh my data entry 3 times a day. So you'll have to set up your gateway. So to download your gateway, you go to Power BI service, and you remember where I was showing you where you can sign out or sign in. You click that, and then you get a drop down. On download, you can click the data gateway. So once you're here, you can tell the installer where do you want to install this. So just give navigate to where you want it to install, or you can just use the default. So that you can now put in your email address to kind of register. And then once you are done, you're signed in, now you're done, you can say close. So for our case, as you have probably figured out, we are using the personal mode because this is not, I'm not really doing anything that will be on an enterprise level. So now, okay, let's go back to Power BI service and see. I had already downloaded my my Power BI gateway, but I think first of all, let me show you how to manually do this in Power BI desktop. Okay, so remember you have to be signed in. So you can see this button, it will refresh. So once you click this, it will give me the latest information. So once you click refresh, it will refresh all your queries, even your mail. Yeah, so you can see we already have a bit of an error here, and can go and view what the error is about. And the problem with having an error is that once you schedule and refresh and you have an error, it's not going to really execute the refresh. So you can just go, these are some of the things that really some of the errors you should be expecting when you're making reports. So you can see my report, I have a calendar, Yeah, that is really not working. Okay, for now we can just delete this error. This one. Yeah, and close and apply. Okay, but that is how you refresh your visual. So if everything is okay, it should just refresh without any issues. Okay. So once you're done with that, now that you know how to refresh in Power BI Desktop, let's go and know how to refresh in Power BI Service. So once you go into Power BI Service, we don't really refresh our report, we refresh the data. So let's go to our data sets. This is it. So you can manually refresh now. Okay, I remember I said you can have 8 automatic refreshes. These are the ones you schedule, but these ones you can, if you want to on demand refreshes like this one, you can just refresh now and it will be fine. So, and you can see it's going to do this and then it's going to tell you when it was last refreshed. Okay, so what if I want to manually, to now create automatic refreshes? Okay, so now, I hope you saw this. You can see an icon here that is called schedule refresh. Just click it. Once you click that, you go down here to schedule refresh. This is where you set up your refreshes. But remember, since my data source is on premise in my folder, you have to have created, you have to have installed Gateway. So if you did all the steps, it's not really that difficult. You just click, you download, and then you put in your email. Once you're finished with that, you'll see your gateway will appear here. And you'll see it's running on my local computer, running on this desktop. So that is how your gateway will look like. Yeah. Once you've done that, now all you need to do is for your data source credentials. This one you just edit credentials. They will tell you to sign in. So you just put privacy level something like none. If you don't have any like credentials you want, but I'm sure if your data is private, public, but any that suits you, I use none. So now this one you can now check this toggle button, and now you can set up your refreshes. So you can see your frequency, how frequent do you want to refresh your data? So you have the daily or weekly. So I chose daily because that is what, and you can choose your time zone. I chose my time zone, which is in Nairobi. And then now I scheduled this time. Let's add another time. Let's say I want to refresh at 5 p.m. every day. After that, I can say apply, and you can see send failure notifications to dataset owner. So if my report doesn't refresh, like we saw before, maybe it has some errors, which will refuse it to refresh. I want you to send a notification and say, this time it was scheduled to refresh, but it didn't refresh. So that I can really quickly know that my report is really not refreshing, so my end user is not really getting the latest data. You can, to the dataset owner, if I want to add somebody else, who can, maybe we can put in Winnie. Winnie, there she is. So, and then I can apply. Yeah, so anytime my report doesn't fails to refresh, then Winnie will get a notification as well as me and Winnie will get that. But and you can add as many other people as you want. That is how you set up a Power BI gateway. So what if your data is not on premise but is also in the cloud? Maybe maybe your data source is a SharePoint list. You won't really have to go through downloading a gateway, you'll just come here, edit source credentials, and then schedule refresh as you have done now. So the gateway step, you just keep that step, and then you just do this, the rest as is, as we have done now. Okay, so right now I think we have a good grasp of Power BI service. We know what a workspace is. We know what a dataset is. We have created a report. We have shared a report, created a dashboard. We've already set up a gateway. We've scheduled automatic refreshes. We've refreshed in our Power BI desktop. So I think we can now finish up with looking at Power BI mobile. So we'll go back to my Power BI desktop. So as I said before, Power BI mobile is a way of consuming, it's a really good way of consuming your reports. You can see we had, we were able to consume it through web. So once we clicked the link, we were taken to our browser and we're able to really see it well. But once you open, you need to really, like a website. There are those websites when you see them on your browser using your laptop, looks very nice. But once you open the website on your mobile, it doesn't look very nice. They're very small, or things are distorted. It's not really giving you the user experience you're experiencing when you're interacting with the website on your laptop. So, and these days people are really looking at their phones. That is how people are really consuming information. It's very important to, just in the same way, make things easier to consume through mobile. So the same thing for our reports. So if you were to open this with your phone, so you go to Play Store and you download the Power BI app. Once you download that, if you have a license, and you can go to Power BI, you can just sign in all the reports that you have in Power BI service. You can get them on your mobile app, on the Power BI app. But unless you have done some work in making your report consumable in a mobile, that you will not, the same way you'll see the report doesn't have a good experience, you'll see a small screen, you'll see the report as a small, probably like a really small image. So that is where Power BI mobile comes in. So how do we make this report very well consumable through Power BI mobile? So we can go to view, and then here in mobile layout, you can tell them got it. Okay, so I had already done a few things. So something to note. So this is how somebody will interact with this. Somebody will interact with this report on Power BI mobile. So this is how it could look. You see, it's still giving you a good experience and not really distorted. So now let's see how we can come up with this through here. So the first thing you'll see is, let's delete this one, since that I already said. So you'll see all the visuals on this page. And not something to note, even if you change the font or you change anything here in this layout, it will not affect your original report. Okay. So let's put in all the visuals I want. You can drag, and you have a nice grid over here that will help you really That is one visual that I want. Sales by employee. I want this one as well. Can just drag it here. Both the total number of employees. You can see this, probably this text is a bit too big. So you can change this font here. You can change the size of the title. It will not affect your report on the other side. If I go back to the page view, it won't affect the report, and I can change the font so that way I can even have that I can reduce the size. You see? Okay, so I can add other things. Even just have it here. And you can see here it's really like phone. Okay. Let's look. These other remember these are cards. You can delete that. 20. Total. Okay. So now when I want my consumer to consume this report, this is what they're going to see. And you'll be able to, they can really see it and navigate with it and really interact with it from the perspective of a mob. That way, instead of seeing just one small image that they have to zoom into, you can just do it like this and scroll, and this is how you. So Power BI Mobile is basically on how we consume our reports. And also you can do this in Power BI service as well. So I'll leave that as a small homework for you, just go ahead. Also make your report consumable for your end user in Power BI service. Yeah. So once you're done, can see nothing has changed. It has retained. We didn't make any changes. It didn't make any changes in our original report. But once our user is interacting with the report on mobile, they'll see this other thing. You can just continue adding all those visuals. Bottom. Yeah, with that, I think we can conclude this session. In a good session. I hope you were able to take away something. So if there's time, maybe we can let me know if there are any questions.
All right, that was quite a nice presentation. So I can't see any question on the chat, but if there's anyone who has any question, I think you can just drop it on the live Q&A session. Yeah.
Yes, so if you have any further questions, you can contact us through Basi. Yeah, so, I think we will also be we'll be uploading a recording of this, so if you need to go back and see something you really didn't get and play back that. Thank you so much for joining this session. There are many sessions that are coming, so you can follow Sibasi on Eventbrite so that you can be notified once the other sessions are going to be there. We have a very advanced session on Power BI modeling, row-level security, advanced DAX measures. So please look forward to that. Yeah. That I think we can close off this session. Thank you so much for joining us.